All right, Councilor Silvitz, we are live streaming.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the June 15th Heritage Richmond Hill meeting. This afternoon's meeting is an electronic meeting being held pursuant to Section 238, 3.3 of the Municipal Act 2001. Please note that we have received regrets from Timothy Cheng and Tom Pekchovsky for this meeting. The public had the opportunity to submit written correspondence regarding agenda items by email to the clerk's office. All written correspondence received by noon the day before the meeting would have been included in the agenda, but none was received. The public also had the opportunity to apply to appear as an electronic delegation, either by video conference or by telephone the day before the meeting, but none was received. However, we will have one person joining us with regard to one of our agenda items, but he will not be speaking. He's simply there should we need him. So that's it. As chair of the committee, I will now call this meeting to order. I ask that you please keep your mics on mute unless you are speaking as directed by the chair. Thank you. Okay, we are called to order. May I please have a motion from a committee member to adopt the agenda? Thank you, Nancy. All those in favor, just raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? No, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Any committee members have any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Oh, and welcome, Councillor Thompson. Nice to have you join us. Okay, we move to minutes of the previous meeting. So, agenda item 4.1, minutes Heritage Richmond Hill meeting HRH number 0423, held May 11, 2023. A, that the minutes of Heritage Richmond Hill meeting HRH 0423, held May 11, 2023, be adopted. I am sure that everybody has read their minutes. Does anybody have anything to comment on the minutes? No? Okay, so could I please have a committee member bring forward the minutes of Heritage Richmond Hill meeting HRH 0423, held May 11, 2023, so we may adopt them. Agnes, thank you. Moved so by Agnes. All those in favor, just raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. On to agenda item 4.2, which is extract of council meeting C number 2023, held May 24th, 2023, that the extract from this council meeting regarding staff report SRPI 23037, 2023 Heritage Grant applications, 6 properties, and staff report SRPI 23045, Heritage permit 10066 Young Street roof replacement, D12-07438 be received. Could I have a member of committee move that motion forward, please? Thank you, Barbara DeMambro, Vice Chair DeMambro. Gather that everybody has read this. Does anyone have any comments? Seeing none. Okay, that's good. So we have that on the floor. Sorry, I was just distracted for a moment. So A is on the floor. All those in favor, just raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Okay, the delegations. We don't really have a delegation, as I stated, but Mr. Siam Mumal is with us with regards to agenda item 6.1. And welcome, sir, if you can hear me. And if we do need any discussion from you, we will let you know. Thank you for your attendance. And we move to our scheduled business. Agenda item 6.1. RPI 23061, Heritage Permit and Authority to enter into a Heritage Conservation Agreement for 103 Richmond Street. And we have a presentation to be given to us by Julia Smith, who is our urban design heritage planner. Go ahead, Julia, you have the floor.
Wonderful. So good afternoon, everybody, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So for those of us who may be joining for the first time, my name is Julia Smith, as Chair Silovitz said, and I am the Heritage and Urban Design Planner at the City of Richmond Hill. So today I'm going to make a brief presentation related to the heritage permit application for alterations to the Eliza Gabby House at 103 Richmond Street, which is addressed in Staff Report SRPI 23061. And I was going to take a minute just to introduce Saeem Umal as well, but Chair Silovitz already did that. So next slide, please. So the property at 103 Richmond Street is located on the north side of Richmond Street, just west of Richmond Street. And you can see that the property boundaries outlined in green on this slide. Next slide, please. So the property contains the Eliza Gabby House, which is a two-story frame dwelling comprised of a main south portion, which is shown in red on the diagram on the right side of this slide, and a rear north extension or addition, which is shown in blue on the diagram on the right-hand side of this slide. The main portion of the house was built circa 1886 by Levi Gabby for his widowed mother Eliza, and is constructed in the Ontario cottage or Ontario architectural style. The rear north portion of the building appears to have originally been constructed as a one-story rear extension and was later expanded in both area and height through a series of additions that happened over the course of many years. The property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act by designating bylaw 13495. Next slide, please. So in brief, the proposed alterations to the Eliza Gabby House that are included in this heritage permit include demolishing the existing rear extension or addition of the house, temporarily raising and rotating the main south portion of the house slightly to the east, and then reinstating the house at the same level as it is currently. Replacing all the windows in the main south portion of the house with new wood units of the same design and configuration as the existing windows. Restoring the original exterior wood elements of the main south portion of the house and repainting the house in a historically appropriate color. Removing the existing enclosed front porch on the house's south elevation and reconstructing an open porch based on photographic and material evidence. And finally, constructing a new detached frame garage at the rear of the property in an architectural style that complements the Eliza Gabby's house, the Eliza Gabby House's Ontario cottage architecture. So this slide shows the proposed front elevation of the Eliza Gabby House on the left, and you can see that new open front porch, which is going to replace the existing enclosed front porch. And you can also see the proposed rear addition behind the front portion of the Eliza Gabby House. Next slide, please. And this slide just contains a couple more elevation drawings. So this is of the side elevations of the house. So you can see the conserved front portion of the house with the new rear addition. And the east elevation is shown on the left-hand image, and the west elevation is shown on the right-hand image. Next slide, please. And this slide contains a picture of this detached frame garage that's going to be built in the rear of the property. And you can see that it has been designed in a style that is quite complementary to the existing architecture of the Eliza Gabby House. Next slide, please. So the proposed addition and alterations to the designated heritage property at 103 Richmond Street will allow for the continued use and long-term conservation of the Eliza Gabby House. The proposed rear addition has been designed to be compatible with and subordinate to the heritage house, and thus conserves the legibility of the building's Ontario cottage architectural style. Further, the reinstatement of a period-appropriate open front porch and the restoration of existing exterior architectural elements, including the clapboard siding and window and door architraves, will have a positive impact on the property's heritage attributes and cultural heritage value. While the removal of original wood sash windows on the house's east elevation will impact the property, the replacement of these units will ensure better performance and energy efficiency for the building. And mitigation will be achieved by selecting replacement windows to match the materiality, dimensions, configuration, and profiles of the historic windows. So essentially, the windows that they will be installing will match exactly the existing units. Next slide, please. As such, staff are in support of the current proposal, and we recommend that the heritage permit application for alterations to the Part 4 designated Eliza Gabby House at 103 Richmond Street be approved, and that the city be authorized to enter into a heritage conservation agreement with the property owner to ensure that this work is carried out as proposed. And that concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it. Great presentation. Okay, so we want to bring this forward. Could I have a member of committee please bring this matter forward to the floor so we can discuss? Councillor Davidson, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Davidson, as you brought it forward, do you have any comments?
Actually, I just have a question. Whoopsie. What's in the house now? Is it a residence? Is it something that the city uses? What's the purpose of the house right now?
Sure. Julia, can you respond?
Yeah. Yes, through the chair. So the property is not actually a city-owned property. I know most of my heritage permits are city-owned properties, but this one is actually a privately owned residence, and it is currently being resided in by the applicant and his family. So it's owner-occupied house.
Occupied. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the actual renovation, I'm still a little foggy. What part? They're going to pay for some of this and then the city chips in? Is that how the cost works? No.
Through the chair, this is entirely privately funded. So the city is not providing any funding towards this project.
You provide design support. Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Agnes, I see your hand up. You're next.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. I actually think that this is a very exciting project that the owner is undertaking. I have read the conservation brief in its entirety and the staff report. It was a very interesting read, and thank you to the person who put that together, as well as to the staff who put their report together. I also have the advantage of living in the neighborhood, so it is a very, very good thing to set eyes on the actual place. And when I go on my walks, I just incorporate it into my walk this morning and took a look at it from the outside. And it definitely, this will benefit the house in and of itself. Yes, the back portion has to come down, but that isn't original anyway. But I do think that you could see peeling paint. You can see those drain pipes that are not connected properly and giving. So I think overall, this project that the owner is undertaking is going to help to preserve the historical home in the long run. And
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you, Agnes. Next to speak is Bob Berube.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to echo what Agnes said, and I want to really kind of commend the owners for taking such an interest in their house. As a fellow heritage homeowner, I really, think that this is a perfect example of how we can maintain and reutilize these properties and expand them properly with, great design, as well as ensuring that we build on a proper foundation. So I was really happy to see the foundation being redone, because I think that will give it longevity in long term. So thank you, and great work to the staff for the report and the owners for bringing this project forward.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Any other members of committee would like to comment? Vice Chair DeMambro, you've got the floor.
I just support what Agnes and what Bob said. And again, to the homeowner to want to maintain a beautiful heritage home in Richmond Hill. And I think that for most of us that love heritage, we just want to commend them. That's all.
Thank you, Barb.
Through the chair.
Anyone else on committee wishes to add anything here? Oh, seeing none. Okay. So from myself, I echo what fellow members of this committee have said. Mr. Mumal, I want to commend you for bringing this forward as a renovation of a heritage home. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for joining us. I hope you and your family have very, very long lives living in that home. It's beautiful. And we look forward to seeing the renovation completed. Whatever is, as far as I'm concerned, whatever is proposed is completely acceptable. And you and your family truly deserve truly deserve a commendation that you've applied for this renovation as opposed to a demolition permit, because so often that's what we receive, and we see the beauty of our heritage homes destroyed. This way, you are preserving it, you are living in it, and that is the best way for us to ensure the longevity of our heritage homes. So thank you very much, sir. We are very appreciative. Would you like to make any comment, Mr. Mumal?
No, I just wanted to thank the members of the committee to weigh in on this project and appreciate what we're doing. I think it gives us an opportunity to keep this going for another 100 years at least. Because it was built in 1886 and it definitely needed a lot of work. So we've lived through a lot of pain over the last few years. So I'm glad that at least my kids will be pretty excited to know that they're going to get a fresh home soon. So thank you for that.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so no one left on the first round. Does anyone want a second round? Just raise your hands. Seeing none. Okay, so on the floor, moved by Councillor Davidson. I'll read this into the record because can't be seen. There it is on the screen. Thank you. That Heritage Richmond Hill recommends to Council A that the heritage permit application to allow alterations to the Part 4 designated heritage property at 103 Richmond Street, as generally described in the plans and drawings prepared by the Gregory Design Group, dated May 4th, 2023, and the conservation brief prepared by Common Bond Collective, dated May 17th, 2023, be approved, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the owner of 103 Richmond Street enter into a heritage conservation agreement in accordance with the plans and drawings prepared by the Gregory Design Group, dated May 4th, 2023, and the conservation brief prepared by Common Bond Collective, dated May 17th, 2023, containing provisions to ensure insurance coverage for protection of the heritage house during construction and restricting any site works until building permits have been issued. And B, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute a heritage conservation agreement with the owner of 103 Richmond Street upon written recommendation of the Commissioner of Planning and Regulatory Services. If you can hear a squeaking in the background, it's a development across the road from me. So please excuse it. Okay, so we have that on the floor. Thank you, Councillor Davidson, for bringing that forward. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving to agenda item 6.2, the Richmond Hill 2023-2027 strategic plan. This is a presentation by Lise Condi, Manager Strategy and Government Relations, and Stacey Hushin, Strategy Corp. Please note that this is a 10-minute presentation. Ladies, welcome, and you have the floor. Ryan?
Through the chair, very quickly, I apologize. So Ms. Condi will not be able to make it. So Dickinson will be doing the introduction, and from Strategy Corp, Ms. Hushin will not be able to make it, but Mr. Blaskovic will be doing it in her place. So I will turn it over to Ms. Dickinson now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Dickinson. I'm a strategy and Government Relations Coordinator with the city, and I'm here this afternoon with you on behalf of my manager, Lise Condi. She sends her regrets. So with a new term of council, the city is embarking on a new 5-year strategic plan that's going to set our vision and goals through to 2027. An important part of developing a strategic plan is hearing from the community. And as one of council's advisory committees, we're coming to you today for your feedback. We have hired Strategy Corp, who are experts in municipal strategic planning, to help us with the community engagement piece of this work, which includes some upcoming community open houses, some pop-ups at events like Canada Day and Ribfest, an online survey, which is currently open and available on our website that will run to the end of July. So with all of that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel, who's here from Strategy Corp, to lead you through a short presentation and then guide you through some questions so that we can turn it back to you for your discussion.
Thank you, Ashley. Go ahead,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
All right, thanks so much, Ashley, and good afternoon, Madam Chair, and the rest of the members of the committee. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Daniel Blazakovic, as mentioned, and I'm a senior consultant at Strategy Corp, the firm that was engaged by the city to help develop the 2023 to 2027 strategic plan. I'm also joined by my colleague, Hannah Tobias Murray, as well on this call. Next slide, please. So today's, the agenda of today's discussion essentially is I'll provide a brief project overview. So essentially, what is strategic planning and why is the city embarking on this project and what does it hope to achieve? How we're engaging, so who we're talking to and how we are doing so. As Ashley mentioned, there are some community events and internal city events that we have planned or already have initiated to gain important feedback on the strategic planning process. And we'll open up the floor for some discussion if that is what is desired. And we'll finish off with some closing remarks, and we'll leave our contact information for the group should anyone wish to reach out and learn more about the process or provide more direct confidential feedback. Next slide, please. Okay, so meeting objectives. So today we essentially have 3 main objectives. As I just mentioned, we're providing the project overview. We're going to mention to you who we're talking to and where we're doing so, and we want to listen to your perspectives. Next slide, please. These are some participation principles that we typically outline on the screen for participants that take part in these discussions. Based on the discussions I've heard so far from the group, I have no worries that the discussion will not be or will be disrespectful or will not engage in respectful conversation anyway. But essentially, we just want to hear from everyone. All questions, feedback, and concerns are welcome. We encourage everyone to keep an open mind and be open to learning something new and actively listening and respecting different perspectives. Next slide, please. These are just some introductions. So as I mentioned, I'm a senior consultant at the firm, and I'm joined by Hannah Tobias Murray, who's an intern, and our contact information is here and will be forwarded to the group afterwards as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to provide a project overview, we'll keep it super brief. Next slide, please. So essentially, what is strategic planning? So I'm sure many on this call are familiar with the strategic planning process at the city, but typically it is the case that community members may not always be super connected or plugged into how the process works. So essentially, in short, strategic plan kind of sets out what the city's top priorities are and develops a shared vision for the future of the community. It also provides a roadmap for council, staff, and the community as to what Richmond Hill wants to be and how it intends on getting there. For a municipality like Richmond Hill, a guiding document like this is very important. This is because municipalities need to make choices about what services to deliver and where to invest these limited resources that the city has. As a result, this document can become a frame for council to evaluate different options. And essentially, this is the ideal outcome that I just explained for developing a strategic plan and the strategic planning process. What we're hoping to help the city achieve is developing a strategic plan that will actually be used and referenced in day-to-day activities, as opposed to sitting on a shelf or kind of being a nice looking document on the city's website. So we really want to harness this document as much as possible. So as for the graphic on the right side of the slide here, kind of the strategic plan you'll notice is at the top. And the strategic plan tells you essentially what the city can achieve, but not how it will achieve it. And below that, you will see operating plans. So operating plans such as action plans, the city's official plan, and other strategies that have been developed will tell you how to achieve the strategic plan by advancing activities that have already been developed by staff. And then you'll see at the bottom of the graphic there, the city's budget. The budget is essentially tells you what, or it essentially limits what you can do, and it doesn't tell you how you necessarily achieve the strategic plan, but it really sets those limits and kind of demarcates what can be done within the strategic planning cycle. So all in all of these pieces are super important part of being a cohesive organization and developing goals and a roadmap to achieve the strategic plan. Next slide, please. So just outlined on the screen here is just a timeline of kind of where we've been and where we plan on going with the strategic planning process. So as Ashley mentioned, the City Engaged Strategy Corp, my firm back in April 2023, that's when we formally kicked off the plan. We're really in the thick of community and stakeholder engagement right now. So that kicked off a couple of weeks ago, where we're engaging virtually and in person internal groups to the city, including different staffing groups and departments, members of city council, committees of council as well. And also we're initiating next week going out to the broader community. And I'll talk a bit more about what we have planned on a later slide, but we're really in the thick of trying to gain as much feedback as possible right now over the next several months. Then towards the end of summer and into September, we'll be kind of synthesizing everything we've heard. So we're going to hear from a lot of different individuals and community members. So we really want to put all of that into an easily digestible document that will be presented to council and will be released back to the public. So it will be posted for public comment. And the goal of that is to ensure or really ask the community, did we get it right? Did we hear what you were telling us? So that will be another opportunity for the community to help kind of refine and validate the outputs of the strategic planning process that throughout the summer. And after that, we will actually step away from the process. So the city will be developing the plan in-house. So our main goal is really setting up the city for success when they actually begin writing the formal plan beginning in September, October, and taking place onwards. Next slide, please. So now I'll just quickly outline how we're engaging. Next slide. So who is the city talking to through this process? I mentioned a bit already about who we're speaking to, but outlined on the screen are really the different groups that we're trying to engage in this process and meaningfully engage and provide dedicated opportunities for these different individuals or groups to provide their feedback on the strategic planning process. And you'll see that committees of council are highlighted there. Towards the bottom are more members of the broader community, such as individual community members, those from the local business community, local religious, cultural, and advocacy groups, social services providers, as well as Indigenous right holders and urban Indigenous groups. So a really broad range of community groups. Next slide, please. And this is the way we're engaging the community. So we've kicked off an online survey, one for staff and one for the community. So it is actually live right now, and we encourage members of this committee to participate and fill out the survey. As Ashley mentioned briefly, we're conducting community pop-ups where we're going out into the community to hear feedback. And so we'll be attending the Canada Day celebration, concert in the park, and Rib Fest throughout July. We also have more typical community meetings, town hall style meetings scheduled, a virtual one on the 23rd of June and an in-person one on the 27th. And we're also meeting with various groups that were outlined on the previous slide to gain more insight on specific issues. Next slide, please. And then we can jump, we talked a bit about the kind of why you would get involved in the strategic planning process a bit before.
That's okay, carry on.
Okay, if we can just jump to the next slide. So this is time we've dedicated for discussion if desired. So these are some thought starters we thought might spur some discussion amongst the group. In no way is it meant to limit discussion, but we thought that some questions on the screen here might initiate some conversation from the group.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Let's keep that slide on the screen. No, actually don't, because then I cannot see everybody. Perfect. Okay, can I have a member of committee bring this forward for discussion, please? Just raise your hand if you wish it to be you. Nancy, thank you so much. Okay, so we have the presentation before us, and I will now move to the committee members and see if you have any questions or comments or statements you wish to make. Nancy, as the mover of the motion, you have the floor.
For the chair, I don't have any comments at this time.
Okay, Nancy, thank you. Anyone else? I see Bob Berube has his hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
Yes, through the chair, and thank you for the presentation. Maybe 2 points, because I think the first question was what barriers, impede kind of conservation, et cetera. So I would say, we, in part of the minutes, we approved some funds that were given to homeowners that apply. I'm not sure if that money has always stayed to the low levels that it is today, but given the expensive nature of maintenance and materials, et cetera, I think that, that should be looked at in terms of how could we better support financially homeowners of designated properties to maintain their properties into the future as materials and workmanship to maintain homes of that era increases. And I think other municipalities have other ways of reducing barriers, such as reduce property taxes for designated homeowners of heritage properties. So I think that those areas should be explored. And then finally, but not least, is, and I'm kind of looking at the presentation we had earlier, is prioritizing developers who are serious about conserving and transforming heritage properties, much like the homeowner presented at the beginning of this meeting. If we could break that into the strategic plan in some way, shape, or form. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Those are great points. Anyone else on committee? Vice Chair DeMambro, you're up.
Yes, through the chair, you said some ways to engage the community. I think that was the third question or the second. But some of the activities that have been going on, like the cultural summit, we're going to have a heritage summit in the fall. I think more of those events where we're inviting many people from different community groups that connect with the churches, the groups, the social service agencies, etc. Because the more people that are engaged, not just homeowners per se, but homeowners also are involved in those other activities. We also are a commuter community. So some people just live here and they work elsewhere. So how do we engage them to feel good about where they live and also where they could also make money and be part of a city that could be both for them? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barb. Next person up is Councillor Davidson. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. One of the things that I would like to see is, and forgive me if there's something like this, but almost a walking tour for the village where you could go to a podcast and understand what these houses were. When I hear about a house built in 1888, I want to hear more who lived there and setting the stage of what Richmond Hill looked like in 1888. And I'm just wondering if it's possible for staff to create, I'm thinking podcast, because everyone usually has a phone and they go buy something, and maybe they could go to, a Richmond Hill Heritage podcast, hit an address and find out more. I know there's usually plaques, but I'd like to hear some more fun things about, oh, did you also know in 1988, they had official horse poop cleaner uppers, whatever. So I would just love to see, I think there'd be more community engagement in heritage if they knew more about the heritage properties that we have. Through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. That's such a great point. We do have, well, we used to have tours through the Heritage District. And Maggie McKenzie generally led them. I see Agnes's hand up, so perhaps she can speak from the Historical Society's point of view. But that's a great point. Thank you, Councillor Davidson. We'll definitely have that added to the comments.
And it would more be self-propelled, right? You wouldn't have to sign up, or you could just find that stuff out on your own. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Well, that's a great idea. Perhaps have something recorded, and you can go to the Amos Wright House, pick it up, and then do your walking tour. Great idea. Thank you. Okay, Agnes, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Yes, I belong to the Richmond Hill Historical Society, and I represent them on Heritage Richmond Hill. They did, like as you said, Councillor Silvitz, they used to, at least at some point pre-COVID, have museums of the streets tours. I'm not sure if that's happening now. I believe there's also the Heritage Center. One thing, if the city could please consider, I know that money is always difficult to come by, but consider allocating more financial resources to Heritage and to the Heritage Center. And that is pretty much my comments. I realize that that's not an easy thing to come by, but if that's possible, if it could please at least be considered. The Historical Society, we do try to make ourselves visible in the community. We are operating on volunteers, and we have been to events such as the Maple Syrup Festival. We are having, as Barbara mentioned before, a Heritage Summit, which is happening September the 10th. So we would really like to see a big push of publicity to get that out to as many people across the city as possible. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Agnes. Appreciate it. If you can make sure that we get all that information for September, I will make sure, and staff will make sure that we get that out appropriately. Thank you very much. Okay, we're still on the first round. Anybody who hasn't spoken, would you like to add anything? Seeing no hands raised, my comments then on the first round are simply, I want to thank Strategy Corp for their presentation and for having their members join us here this afternoon. We've had this presented to council, so it's always good to get a second look and look at it from a different perspective, and one specifically from Heritage. So I think all the comments that have been put before us have real merit, and I'll be very interested to see what comes back to us as we move forward with this process. So I don't have any other specific comments. The members of committee basically mentioned a few that I had in mind as well. So that's all from my end. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on a second round? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor that was, I believe it was Nancy, right, who moved that forward. And that is so this is agenda item 6.2A, that the presentation by Lise Conde. No, I have to read that from the screen. Thank you. Presentation by Ashley Dickinson, Coordinator Strategy and Government Relations, and Daniel Blazakovich, Strategy Corp, be received. Sorry, I need to move my gallery. Just give me 1 second, guys. Okay, thank you. And that the presentation by Ashley Dickinson, Coordinator Strategy and Government Relations, and Daniel Blazakovich, Strategy Corp, regarding the Richmond Hill 2023-2027 strategic plan be received, and all comments be referred back to staff. And our thanks. So all members of committee, if you could please raise your hands if you are in agreement. Excellent. Anyone opposed? No, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And thanks again. Thanks again to Strategy Corp for your, Ashley and Daniel, for your discussions. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Okay, so we'll move to item 7 of our agenda, and that's the date of the next meeting, which has been set for Thursday, July the 6th at 3 p.m. Anybody online on committee have any problems with that specific date as of this point? If you do, remember, you can always let me know, let staff know, and we'll do what we can do or figure out if we need to make any changes. And that's it. Otherwise, so that would be the July 6th meeting would be the last meeting of this particular cycle. And then we break for the summer and we come back in September. So that looks good. Agenda item number 8 is adjournment. Can I have a member of committee please raise their hands if you wish to move for adjournment? Thank you very much, Barbara. All those in favor? Raise your hands. Perfect. Thank you. Anyone opposed? No, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, committee, and everyone who's joined us. Councillor Thompson, thank you for joining this afternoon. It's been a pleasure to have you listening and watching. And Councillor Davidson, I'm very pleased